When I was out of the group, it was this manager that he wasn't too good to me. Well, I was kind of kicked out of the group, but it was cool because I wanted to go produce anyway.
The Sylvers were a famous family music group in the 1970s. They had big hits and were loved by many fans. But behind the success, they faced many struggles. Their lives were filled with pain, loss, and tragedy.
But then the album hit on the R&B charts, and we didn't have no more artists. So he said, let's put that out. He just wanted a hit.
Some members battled illness, money problems, and personal troubles. Their story is not just about music, it's about heartbreak and tough times. Let's delve in.
My mother heard us and told my father, and he taught us. He wanted to see if we could learn a four freshman type harmony, four-part harmony.
It all started back in the late 1940s. A young woman named Shirley Mae Weibel was studying music and also training to be a teacher. During that period, she met a man named Leon Sylvers. Leon was a musician from Memphis, Tennessee, and he had dreams of making it big. By 1951, they were married, and let me tell you, they wasted no time starting a family. Every time Leon looked at Shirley, she ended up pregnant. It wasn't long before their house was full of children.
Are there more brothers and sisters?
Yeah.
One more? Who is...
Now, having a big family is a blessing, but it's also a lot of work. Shirley and Leon loved their kids, but babies needed food, clothes, and a roof over their heads. Leon had dreamed of being a famous musician, but with all these little mouths to feed, those dreams had to be put on hold. But then he had a thought. Maybe his kids could carry on his dream. They were a part of him, so surely they had talent too, right? Leon decided to put them to the test. He lined up his oldest children and had them sing. The moment they opened their mouths, his eyes went wide. They had natural talent. Their voices blended perfectly, like they were born to sing together. Right then and there, Leon knew what he had to do. If he couldn't be a star, then his children would be. Leon started training them in harmonies, helping them perfect their sound. It was like magic. Each child knew exactly where their voice fit.
He taught us. He wanted to see if we could learn a four freshman type harmony, four-part harmony, because there was four of us then. Right. And we did. Everybody stayed on key, so that was our introduction into the industry.
They became a little singing group, and Leon named them the Little Angels. It didn't take long for the Little Angels to start getting noticed. They began performing at different events, gaining fans along the way. Before long, they landed a spot on You Bet Your Life with Groucho Marx. Now, if you don't know, Groucho Marx was a huge deal back then, so this was big for the family. At first, only the 3 oldest children were in the group, but as time went on, they added more of their siblings. By the 1960s, their little group had turned into something serious. They even landed a recording contract with Capitol Records. Everything seemed to be going great, but there was a problem. Even though the Little Angels were popular, people started to see them as a novelty act. They were cute kids with great voices, but they weren't taken seriously as real artists. And just like that, the excitement around them started to fade. Later on, they dropped the Little Angels name and became the Sylvers. This time, they were ready to be taken seriously.
Yes, the Sylvers, Cotton Candy. Now,
they weren't just a cute family band anymore. They were real artists. With their fresh new sound, they caught the attention of the music industry again. And this time, they weren't just playing around. They landed a major deal, and soon they were topping the charts. Songs like Boogie Fever and Hotline became massive hits.
Hotline, hotline, calling on the hotline for your...
They were finally getting the success they had always dreamed of. They were making real money, and for a while, it seemed like everything was perfect. But as with all Hollywood stories, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. Behind the scenes, the family was dealing with all sorts of issues. Money problems, personal struggles, and the pressure of fame all took a toll on them. Leon, being the oldest, took charge. He started writing songs, working on music, and making things happen. He didn't just try, he actually did it. And before long, he and his siblings formed a band. It turned out to be the right move because between 1971 and 1972, the Sylvers got a recording contract. MGM took them in, put them in the studio, and helped them work on their music. At the time, they had some solid songs like Fool's Paradise and Wish That I Could Talk to You, along with a few others. But they were still struggling to find that one big hit song that would really set them apart. The youngest member of the group at the time was Edmund Sylvers. He was chosen to lead their next song, which was called Misdemeanor. Leon wrote the song specifically for Edmund, believing that his voice would be perfect for it. But when Edmund got into the recording booth and started singing, something unexpected happened.
It's gonna subside, she stole my heart, but it's just a...
As soon as he started singing, Leon stopped him. Something wasn't right. Edmund's voice had changed. He had grown up, and his voice was much deeper than before. It was no longer the sound Leon had imagined when he first wrote the song. This created a big problem because they needed the right voice to make the song work. That's when Leon turned to his younger brother, Foster Sylvers. Leon told Foster, "I need you to sing this song. You've got the right voice for it." Foster agreed, and it turned out to be the perfect decision. Misdemeanor became a big hit. Foster was young, talented, and had a voice that caught people's attention. Not to mention, he was very cute, which helped make him popular. His voice was so good that people who heard the song on the radio thought it was Michael Jackson singing. But soon enough, Foster Sylvers got the recognition he deserved. The song was everywhere. You couldn't turn on the radio without hearing Misdemeanor. Because of this success, Foster officially became a permanent member of the Sylvers. His voice and presence added something special to the group. But despite the success of Misdemeanor, MGM Records wasn't doing enough to push the group to the next level. They needed more, and MGM wasn't giving it to them. That's when Capitol Records stepped in. Capitol Records had been watching the Sylvers for a while. They had seen the group grow and develop, and now they were ready to offer them a deal.
Because MGM they were more of a pop company. So they put Pride Records strictly for the Sylvers.
The Sylvers probably didn't realize it at the time, but this was about to change their lives in a big way.
But then the album hit on the R&B charts, and we didn't have no more artists. So he said, let's put that out. He just wanted a hit.
The success of Boogie Fever was followed by more hits, including Hotline.
Calling on the hotline for your love.
The Sylvers were on top of the world. They were young, famous, and making music that people loved. But as with many music groups, success brought its own set of problems. There was talk that, after becoming famous, some members of the group started developing big egos. Success had changed them, and it wasn't all in a good way. After their biggest hits, the Sylvers wanted to move in a new direction. Some of them were getting older and didn't want to sing about high school dances anymore. They wanted to make music that would appeal to a more mature audience. To do that, they had to make a big decision. They decided to part ways with Freddie Perrin and let their older brother Leon take full control of their music. Leon was in charge of writing and producing their songs. He had led them before, and now he was leading them again.
This thing's been going. We haven't heard from you in a long time.
Yeah, we've been busy, turning everything over, getting new choreographers and making the whole thing look better.
Good.
But things didn't go as smoothly as they hoped. Even though Leon was talented, the music wasn't connecting the way it used to. The hits weren't coming like before, and the group started struggling. Some of the other members became nervous. They weren't sure if they were heading in the right direction. They wanted to get back on top, and they didn't know if Leon's leadership was going to take them there. That's when a new manager, Al Ross, came into the picture. Al Ross told them he could help them get back to the top. He promised he could make them the biggest group again. But to do that, they had to follow his vision. And his vision didn't include Leon being in charge. When Leon heard this, he wasn't happy. He had been leading the group for years, and now someone was trying to take that away from him.
This is Leon.
He's the oldest.
The oldest boy.
He told Al Ross to back off, but some of the other members weren't so sure.
When I was out of the group, it was this manager that he wasn't too good.
It said that at some point, the group was given an ultimatum. They had to choose between Leon or Al Ross. In the end, they chose Al Ross. But it wasn't just about the music. There were other reasons why they made that choice. Some members felt that Leon had become too controlling. He wanted everything to go his way, and he wasn't listening to their ideas. He acted like the group belonged to him, and only him.
It was cool because there was not too much of a family thing. It was like I wanted to go produce anyway.
Once they picked Al Ross, he couldn't give them what he promised. People just weren't buying it anymore. If someone calls a hotline and hears a grown person singing a song meant for young kids, they're hanging up the phone. That's what started happening to them. And again, that's exactly what Leon was trying to prevent. The worst part? The Sylvers signed a contract with Al Ross that gave him 50% of their earnings. That just ain't right. Well, looking back, they regretted not sticking with Leon. They realized they made a bad move. Now, let's talk about another rumor. This one about Olympia Sylvers.
Olympia, she's usually kind of mellow now. She thinks she's psychic sometimes.
Are you really Olympia?
Well, I'm not going to say that.
Back in the 1970s, when the Sylvers were just getting big, there was a shocking story about Olympia. People said she was kidnapped while walking down the street. The story goes that 3 men in a car grabbed her, threw her inside, and did horrible things to her. They stabbed her, assaulted her, and even injected her with heroin. It was a truly awful and tragic event. That's the version that was told to the public. But the word on the street adds another twist. It said that Olympia wasn't just randomly taken off the street. Instead, she had been hanging out with the wrong crowd. Like many teenagers, she started spending time with people who weren't the best influence. Gossip says the people who hurt her were actually people she knew and trusted. Whoever did this to her must have really hated her. After attacking her, they injected her with heroin. Then, while she was still in the backseat of the car, they started talking about what they were going to do next. They said, "We'll take care of her after we drop the little boy off." That sounds like pure hatred. They had already stabbed and drugged her, and now they were planning to kill her, but Olympia wasn't about to let them end her life. Even though she was hurt and drugged, she got her senses together real quick. Before they knew what was happening, she jumped out of the car and ran for her life. By the time they realized she was gone, she was already far away. Olympia wasn't going to let them finish what they started. Now, what happened to Olympia really changed her. She became very nervous and jumpy. She started seeing danger everywhere, whether it was real or just in her mind. Her mental health suffered a lot. She just couldn't handle what had happened to her. And because of all the pain and fear, she turned to drugs. She thought she could self-medicate and make herself feel better, but it only made things worse. Olympia's life spiraled downward. She struggled terribly with drug addiction. She even ended up homeless at one point. And as if she hadn't already been through enough, she was attacked more times after that. Her family tried to help her, but she wouldn't accept their help. She thought she could handle things on her own, but it only led to more suffering.
Buck Marston.
Okay, this is Edmund. He's the dancer of the group.
The dancer. Are you responsible for all of this? Do you have help?
Well, we all get together in it, but some of them, me and Leon mostly do most of them.
Now, let's move on to Leon Sylvers. We already talked about how Leon had a strong personality, but what we haven't talked about is how he was known for being a ladies' man. Word on the street was that he had plenty of girlfriends. He wasn't as wild as his brother Edmund, but he was still out there. After leaving the Sylvers, Leon started working with Don Cornelius and another music executive named Dick Griffey. Cornelius wanted Leon to help with a new group called Shalimar. Leon Sylvers is doing very well. Some even say he is doing better than anyone else from the group. Leon became a very successful producer, and his career took off after the Sylvers. He worked with many artists and made a name for himself in the music industry. Next, we have Charmaine Sylvers. From what I have seen, Charmaine has always been focused on her career and family. There has never been any gossip or scandals about her. She has kept her personal life private and away from drama. She chose to live a peaceful life without making headlines. Some people just want to focus on what matters to them, and Charmaine seems to be one of those people. Then there is James Sylvers. He is another one who stayed away from scandals. If there was ever anything bad about him, it was not big enough to make the news. From what I have seen, he has a steady job, takes care of his family, and lives a quiet life. Some people prefer to stay out of the spotlight and just go about their business. James seems to be that kind of person. Now, let's talk about Edmund Sylvers. Unlike some of his siblings, Edmund's life was filled with ups and downs. When the Sylvers' popularity faded, Edmund thought his solo career would take off just like Michael Jackson's did. He felt that he was the lead voice behind many of the Sylvers' hits, so he believed he could be just as successful as Michael. He followed the same formula, but his career didn't take off the way he wanted. After years of struggling, he became frustrated. When things didn't go his way, people say he started taking his frustration out on women. But there are stories that he treated women poorly in other ways. There are stories that Edmund had between 11 to 15 children with different women. At some point, Edmund had a big falling out with his family. He left California and moved to Virginia. There are different stories about why he left. Some say he argued with his family over money. Others believe he thought he was better than them. Whatever the reason, he cut off contact with them and started a new life far away. From 1989 to 2004, Edmund moved many times. He never stayed in one place for long. Some say it was because he was struggling financially. There were times when he couldn't even pay his rent. He was living in low-income housing and getting government assistance. His dreams of being a superstar were long gone. By 2004, he had a regular factory job. He was no longer in the music industry. He was just trying to survive. That same year, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. He passed away at the age of 47. Sadly, it seems that when he died, there wasn't much left for his family. Either he had no money, or he had completely cut ties with everyone. To this day, he does not have a headstone on his grave. Now, let's talk about Ricky Sylvers.
This is Ricky, and he's our health nut.
The health nut? Why? What do you do? Are you an exercise freak and all of that?
Exercise and watch what I eat.
It is said that when the Sylvers stopped being popular, Ricky took it hard. He had been performing since he was a child, and he thought he would be famous forever. When that dream was taken away, he didn't know what to do. He ended up turning to drugs, and as many people know, drugs usually lead to 3 places: death, poverty, or jail. For Ricky, it was jail. But as of now, it seems like he is out and doing much better. Next, we have Angie Sylvers. The main thing about Angie is that she struggled with alcohol addiction for many years. She started drinking heavily as a teenager and continued into adulthood. But the good news is that she eventually got help, and now she is said to be sober. Now, Let's talk about Pat Sylvers. There isn't much to say about her in terms of scandal, but one thing is for sure. She is absolutely gorgeous. All of the Sylvers sisters were beautiful, but Pat stood out. I have seen pictures of her, and she was stunning. As for any drama or trouble, I couldn't find anything about her. Moving on, let's talk about Foster Sylvers. There is definitely some scandal surrounding him. When the Sylvers fell off, Foster, just like Edmund, wanted to go solo. He thought his solo career would take off, but it didn't happen. He struggled and, like Ricky, got into drugs. The drugs ruined his life and he lost everything. At one point, people say he was homeless and had nothing to eat. Then, things got even worse. There are serious accusations against Foster. In 2007, he was charged with sexually assaulting a minor. According to reports, Foster entered a room where a child was sleeping and either performed oral sex on the child or forced the child to do it to him. Either way, it was a terrible crime and he ended up serving time in prison for it. Some rumors say the victim was actually related to Foster, but that hasn't been confirmed. Things got even worse for Foster when he was in prison. It is said that when other inmates found out he was a child molester, they made sure he suffered. The rumor is that they assaulted him so many times that he had to be taken to the prison infirmary. After everything, Foster eventually got out of prison, but his reputation was ruined.
Are there more brothers and sisters?
Yeah.
One more? Who is...
The youngest child in the family was actually Christopher Sylvers. Unlike his siblings, Christopher didn't perform with the group. Not much is known about his life, but there were some whispers about how he passed away. People say he died from hepatitis, but there are also rumors that the real cause was AIDS. Some even claim he was found dead in a phone booth, but there's no proof of that. What is confirmed is that he died in 1985 when he was just 18 years old. There is also some gossip about Christopher's father. Some people believe that Shirley Sylvers, the family matriarch, had Christopher with producer Dick Griffey. The story goes that she had an affair with Griffey while working with the producer Leon Sylvers III. The timeline of Christopher's birth doesn't match up with when Leon Sylvers Sr. was still around, leading to speculation that Christopher was not his son. Leon Sylvers Sr. didn't have much of a relationship with his children. It seems like he was absent from their lives. He passed away in 2005 at the age of 73 after a long battle with cancer.
Yes, the Sylvers, Cotton Candy. Now,
the Sylvers were a family music group that became very popular in the 1970s. They had a unique style, blending R&B, soul, and disco. Their songs were full of energy, and their voices blended beautifully. People loved their music because it made them feel happy and alive. The Sylvers became famous for their catchy songs and smooth performances, making them one of the most memorable groups of their time. Their music influenced many artists who came after them. Even today, their songs are still played and enjoyed by fans around the world. The Sylvers were more than just singers. They were performers who knew how to put on a great show. Their dance moves, stage presence, and talent made them stand out. Many musicians look up to them as pioneers in music. Like many artists, the Sylvers faced struggles in their career, but they never gave up. Their dedication and passion for music helped them keep going. Their legacy lives on through their music, which continues to inspire people. The Sylvers proved that music has the power to bring joy and connect people. Their songs will always be remembered as part of music history.